Officer arrests a homeless man, then sees what's inside his wallet and freezes. It was a crisp spring morning in downtown Chicago, the kind that made the city gleam with energy. Glass towers flashed in the sun, taxis honked, and people rushed past each other, each certain of their place in the world. At the corner of Grand and Oak, a man in a torn gray coat sat quietly on a park bench, clutching a small paper bag. His hair was streaked with silver, his hands rough and scarred, his eyes distant yet calm. His name was William Carter, a man the world had stopped noticing. But that was about to change. A police cruiser eased to a stop near the curb. Inside sat Officer Mark Reynolds, a clean-cut cop in his late 30s, known for his discipline and sharp instincts. To him, the city ran on order. Those who didn't fit in often became his problem. The radio crackled. Unit 12, disturbance reported outside the Grand Hotel, possible vagrant harassment. Mark looked up. Across the street, the five-star hotel shimmered with marble and glass. Guests in designer suits glided through the doors. And there, too close for comfort, sat William, staring at the fountain as if lost in thought. The hotel manager, red-faced and anxious, waved frantically. "Officer, that man's been hanging around all morning. He's bothering the guests." Mark stepped out, sunlight glinting off his badge. The morning air smelled of roasted coffee and car exhaust. "Sir, you can't sit here," he said firmly. William looked up slowly. "I'm not hurting anyone," he said softly, his voice weathered but calm. Mark's patience thinned. "You can't stay. Move along." When the older man didn't move fast enough, Mark's hand found his shoulder. The reflex was automatic: assert control, end the disturbance. In seconds, William's arms were behind his back, cuffed. A few pedestrians paused, whispering. To them, it was just another officer doing his job under the noon sun. But as the cuffs clicked shut, something metallic glinted from under William's sleeve. A faded military patch, barely visible against the torn fabric. Mark didn't notice. He guided the man toward the cruiser. The city's noise swallowed the moment. Inside the station, daylight streamed through high windows, casting clean squares of light across the floor. Mark filled out the paperwork mechanically. Vagrancy, public disturbance, no ID. William sat in silence on the bench outside the booking desk. His calmness made Mark uneasy. He wasn't drunk, belligerent, or frightened, just quiet, almost dignified. When Mark finally emptied the man's pockets, a thin, weathered wallet appeared. Unlike the coat, it was spotless, brown leather, polished edges, and the initials WC pressed in gold. Curious, Mark flipped it open. Inside was an old driver's license, long expired, a folded photograph, and something that stopped him cold. A small, gleaming Medal of Honor, dulled by age but unmistakably real. He stared at it in the sunlight pouring across the desk. The blue-ribboned medal shimmered like it didn't belong in this world of paperwork and suspicion. Mark's pulse quickened. He picked up the photo, a younger William, standing in uniform, smiling proudly beside other soldiers. On the back, written in careful ink, Captain William Carter, for courage beyond measure. 2003, Mark blinked, piecing it together. This wasn't some nameless drifter. This man had once stood in deserts halfway across the world, fighting for the country whose streets he now wandered invisible upon. He looked toward the holding area. William sat perfectly still, eyes closed, as a beam of sunlight warmed his face. For the first time that day, Mark felt something unfamiliar, unease mixed with shame. He closed the wallet quickly, trying to shake the feeling. "Probably found it somewhere," he muttered under his breath. Yet even he didn't believe his own words. A knock at the glass made him flinch. It was Sergeant Evans, clipboard in hand. "Hey, Reynolds. Hotel wants the guy charged. You filing it or letting him go?" Mark hesitated, glancing again at the medal lying on his desk. The sunlight hit the engraved name, William Carter. Before he could answer, the station phone rang. Evans turned away. When Mark looked back, the wallet was still there, but William's seat was empty. The officer's heart pounded. He darted toward the corridor, but the hallway was empty, doors swinging slightly in the draft. A flash of sunlight caught his eye through the side exit. For a split second, he thought he saw the old man walking calmly down the sidewalk, disappearing into the glare of the midday crowd. No one else seemed to notice. Somewhere in the bustle of that bright Chicago day, a man who once saved lives was walking away unseen, while the officer who had judged him was about to learn how costly assumptions can be. The next day, the city moved as if nothing had happened. Sunlight spilled over the skyline, buses rumbled, and the same stream of strangers flowed through Chicago's heart. But for Officer Mark Reynolds, something had changed. He couldn't shake the face of that old man, or the metal glinting on his desk. Every time he blinked, he saw the words, "Courage beyond measure." He told himself he'd filed the report, logged the incident, done his duty. Yet something about William Carter gnawed at him like unfinished business. That morning, he returned to the same intersection near the Grand Hotel. The bench was empty, except for a crumpled brown paper bag, the same kind William had been holding. Inside, there was nothing but a neatly folded American flag patch. Mark frowned, looking around. The city was busy, loud, alive. How could someone just vanish into it like smoke? He stopped a food vendor nearby. "Hey, did you see that old guy who usually sits here? The one with the gray coat?" The vendor nodded. "Yeah, the vet. Comes every morning. Buys a small coffee, never talks much. Real polite." "Vet?" Mark asked. The vendor shrugged. Said he used to be in Iraq. Lost everything when he came back. Don't know where he sleeps. Probably under the bridge near 9th Avenue. Mark thanked him and walked back toward his cruiser, the bright sun reflecting off its windshield. The air felt hotter than it should have. He started the engine, but didn't drive off. Something inside him whispered that this wasn't over. By noon, he found himself near the overpass the vendor had mentioned. The highway thundered above him, but down below the world was quiet. Shadows and sunlight mixed on cracked pavement. A small cluster of tents and sleeping bags huddled under the bridge. The smell of burnt coffee and damp concrete filled the air. And then he saw him. William Carter, sitting cross-legged beside a makeshift table made of crates, carefully cleaning something wrapped in cloth. Mark approached slowly, his shadow stretching long across the sunlit ground. William looked up before he spoke. "Didn't expect to see you again, officer." Mark hesitated. "I found your wallet. It's at the station." William smiled faintly. "That's not my first one. They always take them." "You just gave it back," the officer frowned. "You're a Medal of Honor recipient, aren't you?" "Was," the man corrected gently. "Now I'm just someone the city doesn't see." For a moment, neither spoke. Cars roared overhead. Sunlight flickered through the gaps. Mark shifted uncomfortably. "Why didn't you tell me who you were?" William shrugged. Would it have mattered? That simple question cut deeper than Mark expected. He thought about the arrest. The way he'd pulled the man up, the way people stared, the way he hadn't even asked for a name. He'd seen a problem, not a person. "You served?" Mark asked quietly. William nodded. 2 tours. Lost most of my unit in Fallujah. Came home to find my wife gone, house foreclosed, benefits delayed for years. He paused, his eyes narrowing against the sunlight. "After a while, you stop waiting for the system to care." Mark swallowed hard. "I'm sorry," he said, and meant it. Before William could respond, a loud commotion echoed from the street above. The screech of tires, a shout, and the sound of metal crashing. Mark instinctively reached for his radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 12. Possible collision on 9th Avenue Bridge." He looked at William. "Stay here." But William was already moving, faster than any man his age should have been able to. They scrambled up the embankment toward the source of the noise. A small car had flipped on its side, smoke rising from the hood. A young woman inside was pounding on the window, crying for help. Traffic stalled. Drivers froze, filming with their phones. Without hesitation, William grabbed a piece of rebar from the ground and smashed the glass. "Get her out," he shouted. Mark joined him, using his radio to call for paramedics while prying open the door. The smell of burning oil filled the air, and the summer sun beat down on the scene. Together, they pulled the woman out just before the engine caught fire. The explosion knocked them both backward, but no one was seriously hurt. When the fire trucks arrived, Mark stood, breathing hard, his uniform covered in ash. William just brushed the dust from his jacket, as if it were another day at work. One of the bystanders, a man who'd been filming, lowered his phone. "Hey, I know that guy," he said. "He's the vet who always sits near the Grand Hotel." People started to murmur, some clapping, others approaching to thank William. The same man they once avoided now stood like a hero under the blazing sun. Mark looked at him, realizing this was the real face of courage. Not medals or badges, but quiet decency. Later at the hospital, Mark visited the rescued woman. She was shaken but stable. "That man saved me," she whispered. He didn't even hesitate. Mark nodded. "Yeah," he said softly. "He's done that before." But when he returned to the station to find William again, the man was gone. No trace, no ID, not even the flag patch. Only the old wallet sat on his desk, cleaned and neatly placed beside a folded note. He opened it slowly. Inside was the Medal of Honor, and a handwritten message. "Sometimes, the hardest battles are fought at home. Thank you for seeing me." Mark sat there in silence, sunlight streaming through the blinds. For the first time in his career, he didn't see a vagrant, a file, or a charge sheet. He saw a man who had given everything, and asked for nothing in return. And deep down, he knew that he had been the one saved that day. The following morning, sunlight streamed through the precinct windows, painting long golden lines across the floor. But to Officer Mark Reynolds, the light felt heavier than ever. William Carter had vanished again, just like that. No address, no record, no way to trace him except the medal he'd left behind. Mark had replayed every moment in his mind: the arrest, the bridge, the rescue, and now the note. Sometimes, the hardest battles are fought at home. He couldn't stop wondering what those words truly meant. He called a local veterans outreach center downtown. "Do you know a William Carter? African-American male, late 60s, possibly a veteran from Iraq or early 2000s? The woman on the other end hesitated. "We did, but Mr. Carter passed away last year." Mark froze. "Last year?" "Yes," she said softly. "Heart complications. We helped arrange a memorial for unclaimed veterans." "Why do you ask?" The room tilted for a moment. His grip on the phone tightened. "No reason," he muttered. He hung up, staring at the medal in his hand. The same one the man had supposedly left behind yesterday. The realization hit like thunder. If William Carter had died a year ago, who had he been talking to? He rushed back to the overpass. The sunlight was harsh now, bouncing off the asphalt and concrete. The place looked abandoned. No tents, no belongings, no trace of anyone having been there for weeks. Except one thing. Pinned to the bridge pillar with an old nail was that same American flag patch, clean, fresh, not a speck of dust on it. Mark's heartbeat quickened. He looked around. The air was still, eerily quiet. And then, faintly, he heard it, a hum, a tune, something low, steady, and familiar. It was Amazing Grace. He turned, but there was no one. Only the distant roar of cars and the rustling of the wind under the bridge. The melody faded as quickly as it came. He stood there, eyes stinging, unsure if it was the sunlight or something deeper burning behind them. Back at the station, he opened the file on William Carter again. The photo in the system, a grainy image from 10 years ago, showed the same man he'd seen. Same eyes, same face, same gentle expression. But the date of death was stamped in red. August 3rd, 2024. Today was August 3rd, 2025. Exactly 1 year to the day. Mark sat back, staring at the wall, his mind spinning. Had he seen a ghost? A vision? A manifestation of his guilt? Or maybe, just maybe, some people never truly leave until their story is finished. Over the next few days, Mark couldn't sleep. He drove by the same intersection where he'd first arrested William. This time the bench was clean. New paint, no litter, no one sitting there. But under the bench, almost hidden from sight, was a small wooden box. Inside, a folded paper and an old photograph. The photo showed a younger William Carter standing with a group of soldiers, smiling, dirt on their faces, the flag behind them. And written on the back were words that made Mark's heart stop. "For those still fighting battles no one sees." He looked up at the sky, bright blue above the skyline, and whispered, "Rest easy, soldier." A week later, the city held an award ceremony for acts of bravery. Officer Mark Reynolds stood at the podium, sunlight gleaming off his badge. Cameras flashed, people applauded. But when it came time for him to speak, he didn't talk about the car rescue or his commendation. Instead, he told them about a man named William Carter, a man who'd once been forgotten, by the system, by the world, by people like him. He told them how that man had saved a life, and in doing so, had saved his soul. "I met a hero," Mark said quietly, his voice trembling. "And I didn't recognize him, not because of what he wore or where he lived, but because I forgot what real courage looks like. It doesn't wear uniforms anymore. It survives in silence, dignity, and forgiveness." The room fell silent. Somewhere in the back, a veteran stood and saluted. Others followed. For a moment, it felt as if the city itself bowed in respect. After the ceremony, Mark drove to the cemetery for unclaimed veterans. He walked through the rows of small white markers until he found it. William Carter, U.S. Army, 1956-2024. He placed the medal on the grave, the same one he'd found in the wallet, and next to it, he set the flag patch. The breeze picked up, brushing through the trees, and for the briefest second, Mark could swear he saw a silhouette standing a few rows away, calm, proud, smiling. He blinked, and it was gone, but he didn't need proof anymore. He felt it. Some debts aren't meant to be repaid in this life, only understood. As he walked back toward his cruiser, he stopped, looking once more at the city bathed in afternoon light. The same streets, the same noise, the same faces. But now everything looked different. He'd arrested a man he didn't understand. And in return, that man had given him something far greater. The courage to see people, not problems. Sometimes the stories we write in reports are nothing compared to the ones that change our hearts. He started his car, the metal no longer in his pocket but his conscience lighter than it had ever been. The radio crackled. Unit 12, disturbance on 5th and Main, he smiled faintly. Copy that, he said. As he drove off, the camera would slowly rise, the city stretching wide under the sun, before fading to black. Because heroes don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes they carry the weight of a forgotten nation, and still choose to save it one more time. William Carter may be gone, but his story reminds us that dignity has no uniform, and kindness has no badge. Sometimes all it takes is one act of understanding to change a life, or to save a soul. If this story moved you, don't let it end here. Watch our previous video for another powerful story about justice, compassion, and second chances. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because every click helps these stories reach more hearts across the world.